Hey, it's me again, and I've got something different for you this week. I was digging around on my old computer, and I found footage I shot years ago of a whole day of whiskey mashing and production. And at the time, when I was first thinking about starting to do these videos, and things got in the way and never happened. But I found it, and figured I'd share it with you guys today. This is what an 8 to 10 hour day of mashing looks like in just a few short minutes, so enjoy. So first thing you see is I'm adding rice hulls to the mash tun. I use a lot of sticky grains, rye and oats in particular, and the rice hulls help keep everything separated so everything flows when it's time to drain out the liquid. And now you see me breaking some OSHA regulations by standing on the top of the ladder and getting my grain. Every batch is 625 pounds of grain milled by hand on this little tiny mill. Grab some snacks occasionally. I like to get everything lined up in the order it needs to be added. I've got the recipe taped to the wall here. My old business partner used to worry about that, but I figured if anyone wanted to steal my recipe, could do it better and cheaper than me, then have at it. This handy device, little shelf we made just so I could throw several bags of grain up on the ladder at once, so I'm not up and down quite so many times, so it still does get pretty tedious. But I'll fill up the mash tun with 200 gallons of water, bring it up to 140, 150 degrees. That's the optimal temperature for the enzymes to activate and start to break down the starch in the grain into the simple sugars that the yeast likes to eat. Once that's ready, I add the grain in a very specific order. I've learned how to maximize the enzymatic activity. So if I add too much at once, enzymes will get overwhelmed and I won't maximize my yield that way. And things tend to get real sticky and will actually gum up and get stuck, and it turns into a huge nightmare that's a pain to salvage and correct. But I'll add about 100 pounds each time and then spend 10 to 20 minutes stirring and then take a little break. You see now why my drum kit ended up here. I also bump up the enzymes. There's naturally occurring enzymes on malted barley, but we add extra amylase, and then what I'm adding there is the bioglucanase, which helps to break down the long chain starches in the rye and oats. So I measure that out, pour it in, add in the amylase now, and then hop up on the ladder and stir it, make sure it's well integrated into the full mash. So every little bit is getting that attention, and it's basically just digesting the starch. So starch are long chain complex carbohydrates, and the enzymes start to break it down into smaller chunks of simple sugars that the yeast will actually eat and then turn into alcohol. This is chocolate barley, which is barley that's just been roasted, same way you roast coffee beans. That process caramelizes the sugar, and so it's not accessible to the yeast anymore, so it won't add alcohol, but the flavors will actually carry through and give a nice chocolatey undertone to the whiskey. You can see as I'm starting to get most of the grain into here, it starts to get real thick and full, and it starts to seem a little overwhelming at times. But once you start stirring, you'll see that I guess you won't see, but you can actually feel the enzymes working, and the mash will get looser and looser as it starts to break down. Full bag, all my bags. After a couple hours of it mashing and converting, it's time to start sparging, which is just draining off the liquid. I only open the valve a little bit. I learned the hard way that if you open it all the way, right away, it creates kind of a suction and will jam up the outflow, and it's really hard to get it going again. But that's just a big tank that we sterilized before. Now I'm adding a spray ball, which is made for cleaning the mash tun, but the way I use it is another step in the sparging process, where you add hot water after you've drained off a portion of the liquid. You'll add more hot water over the grain again just to rinse off what's left in there. So I'll fill up the still with about 75 gallons of water, bring that up to 150 again, and then pump that in there, and that gets the rest of the sugars washed off the grain. So I'll let this go until it's pretty much full, and it takes 2 rounds. So again, it takes a long time for that to drain. So I'll play drums or work on art or something, find a way to kill some time. And then when it's ready, I will start pumping the wort, the liquid, into my fermenter. Get it all flowing in there. The goal is to get 200 gallons every mash. It's usually around 8% alcohol, so I'll do some readings and check it. You can see the water on top is not as thick as what came out the bottom. So checking the reading here, making sure I'm where I want to be. You always have to make adjustments based on temperature. It'll read lower than it actually is. Then the next day I come in, pump whatever ran off overnight, and you just saw me shoveling the grain out, which is another couple hours of fun. That all goes to a farm in Marysville called Blues Creek. They pick it up and then feed it to their cattle. Once fermentation's done, then it's time to pump it into the still. That little bit you saw there, that kind of weird moonscape on top, is where the yeast has eaten all of the sugar, and these other wild yeast and bacteria take over and eat what's left in there, and it produces acids that create a real complex flavor. And so I wait for that visual cue of that kind of moonscape thing to show up. Last is I'm showing you how I do the apples. This is just a little smoker I had at the shop for small runs. Have a big smoker off-site where I'm doing a large batch of smoked apples. But you can see it's just real apples, smoked for several hours, and then infused in some unaged whiskey that gets redistilled before blending in if I'm making Dear Johnny. But that's how we make whiskey here. So that's how I make whiskey here. Anyway, for today's little moment of motivation, or whatever we're going to call this, please, guys, seriously, I need a name. Pretty much just where I talk about whatever I'm hyped on and thinking about the moment or things that have inspired me in the past. Today, I'm going to talk about Carl Sagan. I'm a giant Carl Sagan nerd. Watch the stuff if you can find it. It's not easy to find for some odd reason. I have a hard copy that I ripped from the library years ago. Don't tell on me, but I revisit that every so often. If you're not familiar with them, just YouTube Carl Sagan, Pale Blue Dot. Love the way he just talks about the nature of the universe and just overall wholesome, positive message. Lots of books. And for local stuff to check out, our friends at Combustion Brewery just down the street just launched their spring menu, which we're on again. Thank you very much. Helps that my friend and bass player singer in my band, Ted Danson, is one of the managers there. But we don't have a bar, obviously, and they do. Lovely patio. So get there, check it out. Beer's great. Cocktails are fantastic. Thank you guys for the support. And that's it for now. See you next time.